From alphatrends.net. Today is Friday, the 19th of November, 2021. We had kind of a mixed market here. We had energy, financials, the Dow and the Russell 2000 lose a little bit of ground, but the Nasdaq, and once again, was led by the semiconductors, and they had a good week. So let's take a look at the action. Here's the daily chart of the S&P 500, and of course we have that rising 20-day moving average still, and we are also above the rising 5-day moving average. Last week we had pointed out that we wanted to draw in a volume-weighted average price off of this low in last Friday's video, and you can see that that's exactly where it came down to on Thursday, and the buyers once again stepped up, adding to this point as a level that we want to keep on watch for next week. If we break below 466.5, then you want to get a little bit more defensive. Otherwise, the path of least resistance is higher, and I would think that it's likely to follow the trend of the Nasdaq into new all-time high territory. This market, as we know, last week it had just jumped over the 5-day moving average on Friday. This week we started out, and again, the volume-weighted average price from last week's low was tested and did hold earlier in the week, and from there it just ramped higher right up through the prior high. And now what we'll be looking for is that this 400 level will become potentially a level of support on any pullback. And of course, keep an eye on the 5-day moving average and the direction of that 5-day moving average. That's what's kept us from buying the pullback in the Russell 2000. We spoke about the volume weighted average price pinch in here, in that the price was compressing between the volume weighted average price off the peak and from where this rally began. Last week we saw a perfect test of that level. It seemed as though maybe it wanted to get going, but we started out on Monday with a little bit of strength. It came right up to that volume weighted average price from the peak, and we knew not to trust a gap higher because we have a declining 5-day moving average, and that's what kept me from buying this Russell 2000. We are now down below this volume weighted average price, so that's obviously not a level that's the market is holding as significant for now. We are still above this prior band of, right at it, right into it. We're below the rising 20-day moving average. So it's kind of a mixed bag. It'd be a shame if this was a failed breakout. I'm not going to call it that yet because we still have the potential to turn around in here. But when you look at the 5-day moving average and where we are right now, for me to have confidence that the buyers have in fact gained control, this is what it would have to take into next week, is maybe something like this. And even if we were to gap up, perhaps do something like this, and then we could see that 5-day moving average flatten out. It gets back above the volume weighted average price from the peak, and then we could have a nice rally into the end of the year. But I'm simply not willing to purchase this at perceived levels of support because we only know true support after the market has turned. And if we use that 5-day moving average in the direction of it as the basis of making that turning point, that's what has kept me out of a ton of trouble buying into pullbacks like this over the years. Semiconductors, new all-time high there. Buyers are obviously still in control, firmly so. We saw Nvidia kind of having some good results this week. AMD continues to lead that group. AMAT sold off a little bit today, though, on their earnings, so kind of a mixed bag there, but overall, all-time highs, you can't argue with that. Biotechs remain a waste of time, both in the IBB and in the XBI. The XBI, we thought, maybe it had the potential to make a higher low and then turn in here. It didn't, so it's a waste of time. Leave it alone. If they don't scare you out on the way down, they will typically wear you out as it goes sideways, doing nothing. Leave that for other people. Go where the action is. Financials did break down a little bit here. They broke below the volume weighted average price that we had our eye on, which was this one right here. And as I mentioned, if it broke that level, we could expect a test of this prior resistance, which was also the volume weighted average price off that low in the 50-day moving average. So it seems as though this is a highly likely level that support will be found. But do we have any evidence of it? No, we don't. So I'll leave that for the gamblers who want to guess on that sort of thing. Let the institutions go in there and build the support. Who cares if you don't buy the bottom tick? wait for just kind of the same thing that I outlined in the Russell 2000. If we're going to see this group turn, maybe it does something like this, where it goes sideways a couple days, that 5-day moving average comes down and bears on it, does something like this, it starts to move higher, rallies up to this prior support, and then pulls back a little bit, and then perhaps gets ready to move higher. But this prior support has the potential to become resistance. So even if you get involved in here, just be aware of that level. Be aware of course, of the volume weighted average price off of the recent peak in the financials, which is now right up in that 40-ish level. So it's a process of letting the market turn. We don't go from fall to winter in one day. Winds come in, they blow the leaves off. We start to see the first signs of snow. Snow comes, then it starts to feel like winter. It doesn't, it's not ready for the spring yet here. We're in a little, small winter for the financials. Let the spring come and then turn back higher. Right now, we're not there yet. Let's take a look at the energy names. They broke down. We spoke about this level 57. It broke pretty hard. Leave these guys alone. They're at a potential level of support, but again, there's no evidence that the buyers are stepping in. We closed right on the low of the day, and if you look at some of the destruction in this market, and people are trying to buy these dips in stocks like Roku, in PayPal, these are stocks that are not helping people focus on the trends that are working. Last week we spoke about CWH above 42.50 and with a potential stop. I just got stopped out of this one actually today at 42.65 on my final third. So I'm done with that one. We had been talking about BROS, and I put this one on Twitter as an individual video as well. Last week, if you recall, we spoke about the volume weighted average price off of this low and this peak, and kind of the same story as the Russell 2000, that it was making lower highs and lower lows with a declining 5-day moving average. It gapped up. You don't chase those gaps, not with a declining 5-day moving average, and we continue to see lower highs and lower lows with a declining 5-day moving average. This week I pointed out, just because it's getting down to the volume weighted average price from the IPO doesn't make me want to buy it. It's the same exact thing. We still have lower highs and lower lows below a declining 5-day moving average. For me to get interested in BROS, I don't care if I pay $55 for it and the momentum's not there. I'd rather pay $58 when it has momentum and the buyers regain control over here. Then I can go in, buy a higher high, and set my stop underneath one of whatever these higher lows ends up being, and then look for it to potentially come up to the these volume weighted average price levels. But I chose this stock because a lot of people have been talking about it. It seems to have a little bit of a cult following and that sort of thing. But don't buy the pullback. Wait for the pullback to stop pulling back, turn sideways, and build some energy. If you're watching this on YouTube, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Some other names to look at for next week, I think you can look at BLNK. This one got back above the year-to-date volume weighted average price on big volume. It's holding up in here. Now, it's had a big run. Be aware of that. It's got good momentum. It's holding above this prior band of resistance. To look for this one to continue higher, I think maybe, back above today's high. A worst-case stop would go under here. If it undercut that low first, then it would, to me, invalidate the trade and make it no longer a strong risk reward. These are the types of setups I lay out in detail for subscribers to Alpha Trends each and every day. BRKS, Brooks Automation, beautiful uptrend up near all-time highs. There's your weekly chart on the daily time frame. Earnings aren't due out till February. All the earnings are always up in here, as is the average daily volume of the last 20 days on these charts that I present. But this one, it's back above the rising 5-day moving average. So for me, if it makes a higher high right here, then I think you could probably get involved with a stop underneath this level in BRKS. GPRE is in energy, alternative fuel. I think it's ethanol. I could be wrong. I really don't care what they do. The fact is, though, they broke beyond resistance. It's got good average daily volume, and the earnings aren't due till February in here. We see that it's holding up. It's riding this rising 20-day moving average, and again, this prior resistance seems to be holding a support. So we have a very easy place to say, Here's where I would cut the trade if I was wrong, in that the market would give me new information. If it's back below this level, I don't want to be involved in this type of stock. Instead, let me just clear this over so we can see it a little bit better, and move this over. I think that you break back above this high from this week. We're back above the volume weighted average price from this peak if we get above that high today. And an absolute worst case would be a stop would go under here. If it did something like this, I would probably set my stop just underneath this level. You could also look at, let's see, MCHP, microchip technology. This one, another one. Nice breakout here. This prior resistance seems to be holding as support. We saw a nice volume activity on the breakout, lighter volume as it's consolidating, showing that there's not a huge rush to get out of this. It's just normal profit taking. Longer term, it's still in a beautiful uptrend. We go down to a 15-minute time frame. It's a little bit early here. You can see that because we have a declining 5-day moving average. Where were we 5 days ago? This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So on Monday, we get rid of this data. By the end of the day, Monday, if we're above this level, that 5-day moving average will have flattened out. What I'd like to see is probably one more run up towards this level, pull back, build, and then get going. And if we take a look at the volume weighted average price from that peak or where this move began, that would get us above those volume weighted average price levels. And then perhaps we could get involved with a stop somewhere underneath this level. Hope you had a good week of trading. I'll shut up for now. Have a good weekend. Thanks for listening.